Hello, my gals. So I thought that for this video, we are gonna run through how we actually put on muscle tissue. If you've been on the team for a bit, we may have run through this in a previous check-in, but if anything, it's always good to run through it again. So, bit of an introduction. Building muscle in itself is not difficult. In fact, it's quite simple. Or we can say that the idea behind building muscle is simple, but going to the gym and actually building it, that's when it gets a little bit tricky. So why should we even bother building muscle in the first place? So the more muscle we have, the higher our metabolism gets and the speed of our fat loss improves as well. So essentially we burn a bit more calories with the more muscle tissue that we have. We also get stronger, we feel more independent, it supports our hormonal health having more muscle. It's not as easy getting pre-diabetic and getting diabetes. And of course, we get better confidence, we feel better in our clothes, we feel better naked, all of those good things, right? Now, a lot of women think they will get bulky lifting weights, sadly, but in reality, as women, we don't have the hormonal structure to get bulky because we have such little testosterone. So when you actually see those women online, that's like, holy shit, she's jacked. She's literally a genetic freak. In a good way, of course, in a good way, but when we train, we get toned, we don't get bulked up, which is really cool. So here are the muscle building basics, and I want you to look through these and think, am I lacking in any of these? And that is progressive overload, consistency, and recovery. So progressive overload is, are you getting stronger every week? With that, if you're in a dieting phase, it's very common to not get stronger every week, and also with upper body stuff, because the shoulders are very small compared to, for example, the quads, but I do want you to try to get stronger every single week. The other thing is, are you consistent? Are you consistent? Massive. I would bet that a lot of you watching this would say you're consistent, but if I actually were to look through your training, it would always be like one missed workout for like the past how many months, you know? Consistency, absolute key. The third one, recovery. Muscles grow during rest, not workout. So that is, how stressed are you? Do you get ridiculously sore? Like those things. I want you to have a think about all of these three things, and if you feel like any of them are lacking, shoot me a message and let's have a chat about it and see how we can improve it. So we actually grow muscle by damaging them. Isn't that cool? So essentially, when you lift weights, we go through something called mechanical tension in the muscle, especially during the lengthening part of a movement. So bicep curl, when we lengthen the muscle, a lot of mechanical tension, for example. This tension causes a strain on our muscle fibers. So here, for example, is a muscle zoomed into a muscle fiber, the little like red stilk going out there. So this strain essentially deforms our muscle cells and it activates mechanosensors in our muscles. It's super, super cool. So when our mechanosensors gets triggered, this starts like multiple biomechanical signals into the body. So here's a muscle fiber zoomed in, and I especially want you to note down the sarcomere and the Z line. So with intense exercise, again, especially in the eccentric movement, so like the lengthening part, some of our muscle fibers, hopefully most, develops micro tears. So these micro tears, they're not harmful by any means. They're actually necessary to grow muscle. These tears happen in the sarcomeres, which are here, and the sarcomeres are what essentially makes our muscles move. Now, what happens is that when these tears the sarcomeres, it essentially disrupts the Z lines. Then when the Z lines get disrupted, it starts an inflammatory process in the body. Inflammation is essentially that we're just holding a bit more water and a bit more blood. Blood are nutrients, so when we have more blood, that's actually really, really good because blood provides nutrients to the body. So if you don't get extra blood, shit recovery, right? So essentially, this is why we can be quite heavy after like an intense leg workout, for example, because there's so much inflammation going around in the body. Anyways, this releases cytokines, it also releases growth factors and immune cells to the site of injury. Super cool. So with this is actually why I tend to schedule in a lot of high repetition training and also time on the tension, and why I give tempo, at least for most programs. Essentially what happens is that when we get a lot of metabolic stress, we get a lot of lactate, hydrogen ions. Of course, these are all like fancy words and you don't really need to take a mental note of that. But essentially what I'm trying to say is that when we are doing high repetition training, we usually get a pump, right? You know, like we get a glute pump, bicep pump, shoulder pump, back pump, literally whatever, right? When we get a pump, we release insulin-like growth factor hormones. And what's really cool with this is that we build more muscle when they are released. Hence why I'm a big fan of high repetition training. So essentially, once the muscle fibers are damaged, the body starts the massive repair process. Then essentially when the repair process starts, that's the inflammation that I told you about, remember? When inflammation starts, it essentially activates our satellite cells. Satellite cells then goes into the muscle fibers and add more nuclei into the cell. This way we make more protein. When we've done that, muscle protein synthesis occurs. So if we don't eat enough protein, we can't go through muscle protein synthesis. So it's like we're trained for nothing. Super important to get your protein in, ladies. Now, this is like the holy grail nutrition for building muscle. If you're in a fat loss phase, this will be a little bit limited, so just keep that in mind. But essentially, we want to make sure that we're eating enough calories, we're having a good meal timing, eating mostly whole foods, not packaged and processed foods, because it just doesn't digest as well in the body. Want to make sure we're eating enough protein, carbs, and fat. So, sometimes, girls, we have to do shit we don't want in order to get results. Time and time again, I will give you girls a program, and someone's like, oh, I don't like squatting, what can I do instead? Not liking something is not a good reason to not go and do that thing. If you have that mindset, results are going to be very, very delayed. Food for thought. Food for thought. Our cycle matters as well. Everyone is unique. Personally, I'm weak around ovulation, which is when I'm supposed to be stronger. Because during ovulation, we essentially have more testosterone in the body. But this is essentially why I recommend some of you girls to rest when you're bleeding. Because when we're bleeding, as we can see here, I keep on doing this. When we're bleeding, all of our hormones are quite depleted. And then it fluctuates essentially throughout the rest of our cycle. A lot of people are quite weak around week 3-4 because progesterone has been high, but again, everyone is different. Now, in terms of just how to make a program, it's very easy to watch a video and be like, oh my god, my program is wrong. No, at the end of the day, like most programs work, but most programs aren't too optimal in a sense. But then you can also argue pros and cons for every single program out there too, right? So super important that we find something that works for you as well. But in terms of building muscle, it's shown that 2 working sets is enough to grow a muscle. However, I don't personally really agree with this. Like I wouldn't just give you 2 sets of squats a week and expect your glutes to grow, you know? But I think keep workout short, 45 minutes max, take less photos in the mirror, just go and get shit done. Rep ranges between 6 to 15 reps, and for smaller muscles like rear delt, the higher reps the better because it's easier to target. Honestly, the key takeaway is don't overthink building muscle. Go to the gym, have fun, get it done, no excuses. Muscle will grow. The reason you don't look like the girl you want to look like is often time, and not training hard enough. And of course, nutrition and everything, but you will get results as long as you're hanging in there. Hopefully this was helpful. Let's chat soon.